Good afternoon. I'm Lori Matson, President and CEO of the Tri-City Regional Chamber. Thank you for joining our January virtual luncheon, 2021 Outlook with the Washington State Department of Commerce, featuring Commerce Director Lisa Brown. The Washington State Department of Commerce is the one agency in our state government that touches every aspect of community and economic development, business services, planning, infrastructure, energy, public facilities, housing, public safety, international trade, and more. Director Brown's presentation will focus on the tremendous responsibilities of her department, as well as the charge to lead COVID-19 recovery efforts. Before we get to Director Brown's presentation, we have some chamber business to attend to. First, an important advocacy update on last week's call to action on Senate Bill 5114. The bipartisan bill was drafted to allow businesses to immediately and safely reopen under the Phase 2 provisions of the Healthy Washington Roadmap to Recovery Plan. The Chamber supports this bill that would allow the legislature to have a greater voice in the recovery process for businesses in Washington State. The bill currently sits with the Senate State Government and Elections Committee. You can keep up with that bill via the Chamber's new video series, Session Spotlight with Stephanie Swanberg. The short, business-focused weekly program highlights the legislative happenings in Olympia that are relevant to the Tri-Cities business community. Please take a few minutes and check out that show on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. As the pandemic continues, so too will the advocacy efforts of the Regional Chamber. Though the local business community has been hit hard by the health crisis, we're pleased that businesses are still joining and engaging with our organization for the first time. I have the pleasure of welcoming the Chamber's newest members. Principal Financial Group, Benton County, Royal Roofing, John Donovan Insurance Agency, Diffusion, Brandon Patton, Tri-Cities Real Estate Market Leaders, WTIA, TMG Property Management Services Northwest, AMS Association Management Services Northwest, and Health First Urgent Care. Thank you all for joining the Chamber. Next, it's my pleasure to announce the January Member of the Month. Since May, the Chamber's Awards and Recognition Committee has recognized businesses that positively impact our community during this trying time. I'm pleased to announce that the committee has chosen Fidelitos Wines as the January Member of the Month. Fidelitos has been a member of the Regional Chamber for nearly a decade. They're a family-owned winery with tasting rooms in Woodinville and on Red Mountain. Due to COVID-19 restrictions placed on the restaurant industry, Fidelitos has donated their wine barrels to restaurants that were interested in using them for outdoor dining. Their donations have helped many local establishments serve their customers without having to purchase new equipment. Some barrels are still available, so pass the word along. Fidelitos has remained resilient throughout the pandemic, offering virtual tastings, curbside pickup, and more. Congratulations to the team at Fidelitos Wines, January Member of the Month. I have some exciting membership news to share. Brett Spooner, founder, CEO, and managing partner of Gravis Law, recently upgraded their membership to the Chamber's highest tier, a visionary level. Brett is extremely active in the Chamber, serving on our board of directors for 6 years, also serving on the board's executive committee. He was a driving force behind the MyTri 2030 Regional Vision Project, of which Gravis Law is a Catalyst level member investor. We're so grateful for the financial investment as well as the investment of time and energy. Thank you, Brett and Gravis Law. The sponsor of today's luncheon is Energy Northwest. Greg Cullen, Vice President for Energy Services and Development, and a newly appointed member of our Board of Directors, prepared this short video for our audience today.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Cullen. I'm the Vice President of Energy Services and Development for Energy Northwest, and I want to thank the Chamber for the opportunity to sponsor today's luncheon. At Energy Northwest, the heart of what we do is provide public power utilities with safe, reliable, carbon-free energy resources and clean energy solutions. It's been our mission for the last 60 years to explore new generating technologies and energy storage solutions to meet the region's future energy and environmental needs. And we are proud to offer a carbon-free generating portfolio that includes hydroelectric, wind, solar, battery storage, and of course the Northwest's only nuclear energy facility, Columbia Generating Station. Today we'll hear from Washington State Commerce Director Dr. Lisa Brown. With Commerce's support through their Clean Energy Fund, Energy Northwest was recently conditionally awarded a $1.15 million grant to install electric vehicle charging stations along the White Pass Scenic Byway. In addition, the Horn Rapids Solar Storage and Training Project, which is north of Richland, came online in November. This project was funded in part by the Clean Energy Fund. We've been very grateful for their partnership and support with these projects. As we look ahead, we're also excited about our partnership with X-Energy and TerraPower for the Department of Energy's Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program, which provides 50% cost-share funding for the design, licensing, and construction of 2 advanced nuclear reactor projects. These non-emitting generating technologies could be invaluable future resources, and both are targeted to be constructed here in the Tri-Cities. To address our climate challenges and reduce carbon emissions, we believe nuclear energy has a key role to play alongside renewables, now and well into the future. DOE's commitment to developing advanced nuclear energy systems brings the region one step closer to a carbon-free electric grid and means that the future of advanced nuclear energy is in our hands, and the significant economic benefits of these projects could be in our community. We're excited about what this means for the state and for the Tri-Cities. Thank you again for this opportunity, and you can reach us on social media or at energy-northwest.com.
Thank you, Greg and Energy Northwest, for sponsoring today's luncheon. Well, this is normally where I turn the program over to the chair of our board of directors, but first I'd like to take a moment to introduce her. Shay Frigette owns Frigette Winery in Benton City with her husband, Greg. Shay was raised in South Carolina while her husband is from Pasco. When it was time to decide where to raise their family, they literally flipped a coin and ended up in the Tri-Cities. We're so happy they did. In 2015, Shay was presented with the Athena Young Professional Leadership Award during the Tri-Cities Women in Business Conference. That award is presented annually to a woman who demonstrates excellence in her profession, improves the quality of life for others in her community, and serves as a role model both professionally and personally. Shay has served on the Regional Chamber's Board of Directors since 2015, and we could not be more thrilled to have her lead us through 2021 as our board chair. Welcome, Shay Frigette.
Thank you so much, Lori, and hello to everybody watching. I want to thank the nominating committee, Lori, and the board of directors for this appointment. I'm so excited to be your chair of the board this year, and I look forward to continuing to support the mission of the chamber. Now it's time to introduce today's guest speaker, Lisa Brown. Now I'll mention 3 universities in the intro of Director Brown, and if I mention yours, I'd love to hear you make some noise. Now I can't hear you or see you, but I promise you I can feel you. Lisa Brown, PhD, was appointed Commerce Director by Governor Inslee and began serving the agency in February of 2019. Lisa is a longtime resident of Spokane. Prior to serving as Commerce Director, she served as Chancellor of Washington State University and led the health science campus there, including the creation of the Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine. Lisa represented the Spokane area in the State House from 1993 to 1996 as Minority Whip and Minority Floor Leader, breaking ground as a single working mother. She then went on to the state Senate, where she became the first Democratic female majority leader and served until 2013. Lisa is an economist and is taught at Eastern Washington University, all right, and Gonzaga University. That's right. She has worked extensively on efforts to create jobs and support working families across Washington state. Her top two priorities, in no particular order, are an equitable and sustainable economic recovery and her baby grandson, Blaze. Please put your hands together and help me welcome Director Lisa Brown. Lisa, welcome.
Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much, Shay, for that introduction. And I think I could hear the go Eags, go Zags, go Cougs, and on behalf of my husband, go Huskies. That was coming forth from our participants today. I'm really pleased to be here. I wish I could be with you all in person. And when I became Commerce Director, one of the favorite activities I had was traveling to different regions in Washington state and meeting with our partners. And I had the opportunity to come to the Tri-Cities on a few occasions, as you'll see on the next slide. I still fondly recall French Fry Crossing when we went to tour Lamb Weston. We met with Carbatex. I have been to PNNL and of course WSU Tri-Cities and the amazing wine center. So I'm looking forward to when we turn the corner with this pandemic and the vaccine to take up those trips again and to see people in person, as I'm sure you're all very much eager for as well. I'm going to spend a little time today, if you want to turn to the next slide, talking about commerce's role in both economic response, disaster response, really to the disaster of the global pandemic and the economic fallout of that, but also recovery and what we see as some of the key strategies. And I'll throw in a little bit about the amazingly bright prospects that we see for the Tri-Cities region. One of the things that I have brought to commerce as a passion, probably being here in Spokane, teleworking, as most of our agency is teleworking from home right now, is the idea that we can benefit both the regions of the state and the sectors, the key sectors and the innovative sectors of the state, and that each region has a vision of its economic development future, and that commerce can be an advocate for that with policymakers like the governor and the state legislature. You see, we have a short name, Commerce, but a broad portfolio of programs that we're engaged in. And on the next slide, you can see that one of the main things we've been engaged in over the last year, and yes, it has been 1 year, is the COVID response and recovery funding, both state funding and the first round of federal coronavirus relief funds. A significant portion of that came through commerce. We were able to do contracts with all local governments in the state. Some local governments got their own federal funding. That would be our 4 largest counties and Seattle, but otherwise the contracts were with commerce for cities and counties. Also rental assistance, business and nonprofit assistance, and assistance to our tribes and to urban tribal entities. And this amount of over 800 million right now will soon go up, as the legislature is currently debating what they're calling an early action bill, which would authorize new federal funding. And we anticipate more, particularly in business assistance and in housing and rental assistance. Okay, on the next slide, this is the other major piece of work we engaged in to prepare for our economic recovery work. And that is to have the data that can inform us both by geography, demography, and by industry, what is happening in the state, and track where we were, where we are, and hopefully help shape where we're headed. And this is the front page of the dashboard, which you can see on the Commerce website. And each piece of this rather busy slide is an element that you can click into, change the time series, sometimes change the drill in by county if the data is available. See not only the trend as you see depicted there on the slide, but also drill in a little bit deeper to see some sub industry issues. And the goal here is we have data from state partners, from some national sources that we are able to participate in, and to be able to pull together both the traditional economic indicators that you would expect, like employment and business income, but also at the same time, add some other things that are really significant, like percentage of the population accessing food programs. We're working hard on mapping broadband, for example, which I'll get to in a minute. So next slide, we'll just show you a couple of the different pieces of the dashboard, and again, invite you, especially our economic development partners, to utilize it, give us questions and feedback on it. This is a slide where you can plug in any state you'd like to compare to, a summary slide in terms of the total employment in our state between January 2020 and November 2020. And we update this with as much real-time data as we can get. And I know that you've probably heard people talk about the shape of the curve and everything from, will we have a V-shaped recovery, a U-shaped recovery, a K-shaped recovery, where some industries and segments of the population go up and others go down. Well, here you can see almost in real time what is happening to Washington State, the country, and some other neighboring states. And as you can see, we cannot take for granted that we just will go up. You can see a downturn in the latest data for Washington State, and the dotted line shows you the lowest point we reached during the last recession. So this is just to emphasize how significantly more serious the initial employment decline was compared to the last recession, and where we're at in terms of climbing out of it. On the next slide, you can see this is some national data that we have that has a Washington component to it. And it's also not the same by depending which sector you're looking at. So whereas total percentage change in small businesses in Washington has gone down by 27%, you can see the spectrum there, with leisure and hospitality obviously most dramatically impacted with 40% and retail at 15. Next slide. So in the next slide, this is also from a partner organization we work with, Association for Washington Business. Many of you are familiar with. They were collaborative to share with us recent data from their survey. This isn't a scientific survey, but it just gives you a sense of how significant the impact has been for business. And obviously that's one of the key things that Commerce is tracking and working on strategies to address how we support businesses during this most challenging time. In the next slide, you can see again that this challenging situation has not affected all sectors the same. And again, on the dashboard, you can change the time series and change the lineup of the industries. But viewing it this way, you can see the most dramatically negative effects for leisure, hospitality, and manufacturing, and that some sectors of the economy are actually improving. Although again, when you break those down by subsector, you sometimes get a slightly different story. Let me just make one note about the manufacturing piece. About half of that we attribute to Boeing and commercial aerospace and the significant declines that they're experiencing. Next slide. So again, as I mentioned, when you break down a sector, you can see it's a more mixed story to tell. So here we thought it would be interesting to look more at subsector of say where fishing and hunting is going versus forestry and logging and so forth. And so we in our work with our sector leads within commerce, we have sector leads in several key areas like aerospace, clean tech, maritime, and agricultural products. But as you can see, again, sometimes there's a different story to tell when you break it down. So I work closely with my counterpart on the cabinet, Derek Sanderson of the Department of Agriculture, to get a more nuanced story for some of those subsectors. Next slide, please. And again, this refers to our trade. As many of you are probably aware, Washington State is one of the more trade-involved states in the country in terms of the percentage of our jobs that are tied in one way or another to international trade. We have some programs within commerce that I would encourage small businesses to check out. If a business is considering how to get into the international trade sector and potentially export, we have some grant funding that we can award from a federal grant called the Dept grant that can sometimes assist in attending a trade show or some type of activity to move your business towards the potential for export. And as you know, trade has been very volatile, even before the pandemic, with the trade and tariff issues. And now we're in the midst of another administration change. So I would just say we'll hang on there, see what happens, but we are tracking those challenges as well. And it's particularly significant, obviously, for our maritime industry, for our agricultural industry, and for others. Next slide. So we also know that equity and both geographic and demographic equity is very significant as we look towards recovery. We don't want to leave counties or whole groups of people behind. So we are also, to the extent that we have the data, checking out what happens as we move forward. You can see here disparities that existed pre-pandemic in terms of unemployment claims for our Pacific Islander population, for our African American families and individuals in Washington State. Those disparities are still with us, and we know that the legislature and other policymakers and our business and economic development communities are looking at ways to be more inclusive and to work on eliminating these disparities. On the next slide is an example of our state's support programs, and again, not the same experience from county to county. This is our basic food program. Obviously, the number of participants absolutely went up dramatically from February to August, over 100,000 more people qualifying for basic food. But you can also see that we have some counties where there are particularly high utilization of these programs. Next slide, please. In terms of the assistance funding that Commerce has been able to award, we've had 3 rounds of business assistance, and you can see here broken up by different regions of the state this is one of the rounds 2 and 3, not the total figures yet. But when we are doing business grants through the Department of Commerce, and let me just say that is very small in comparison to the federal, both PPP and EIDL programs that businesses have accessed in our state. That's a much bigger piece of the pie. But you can see we're aiming both for regional equity as well as looking at industries most impacted by the pandemic. In the next slide, It would also give you a sense of concretely how many businesses have been able to access grant programs directly from the Department of Commerce. In addition to this, many counties and cities have run their own business assistance programs, and we are anticipating another round to be to come through in the early action bill by the legislature that I just mentioned. On the next slide, you can see that we also are looking at how to do the outreach, the technical assistance, and the language translation so that our smallest businesses, our micro enterprises, our main street businesses that may not have been operating in more of a online or digital environment have access to both federal and state programs. So we have formed a small business resiliency network, which is essentially a network of nonprofits all over the state. You see the Tri-Cities Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is one of our first partners in this effort that can have contracts with us and then do that outreach to businesses that have been less likely to access federal PPP or EIDL programs and still, however, are negatively impacted by the virus, whether it's by restrictions or by increased costs that we all know that we have for PPP and other public safety and health rules and protocols. And the next slide, I want to just say a little bit about the Tri-Cities. I am really excited that in terms of both employment and opportunities in the innovation space, the Tri-Cities region is a leader and has so much potential. I know there's a lot of focus on the I-5 corridor. I'm a member of the Cascadia initiative that's working on those connections from Vancouver to Vancouver. But I like to think about what I think of as the innovation and knowledge corridor that runs from Portland through Tri-Cities, Pullman, and Spokane, with innovative research going on, and such a significant, important corridor, both for freight and people, and I would say knowledge mobility. So you've got so much happening here. You heard from our sponsor, Energy Northwest, about a little bit of the partnerships we've been able to engage in. Let me say a little bit more about that. I'm really pleased that we've been able to make awards with the Clean Energy Fund in this space. I'm particularly excited about everything that's happening in the quantum computing space. And maybe I'll just say a couple words about that. The Department of Energy award, of course, that includes Microsoft, PNNL, and the University of Washington in this Quantum Science Center. That is a very exciting and major investment that's going to happen that is happening at the national level. A quantum consortium has been formed nationwide, and I'm pleased to say that our State Department of Commerce is the first state government agency to enter that consortium. We really want to be part of this partnership that will involve our universities and federal agencies and private companies creating the research and supply chain development for all the benefits of quantum computing. And I'll mention something we have coming online soon, and that is an Equitable Innovation Accelerator that Commerce is going to be able to create with, again, a federal grant. And the goal there is to bring in support in terms of mentorship and startup funds, a cash award of up to $100,000 to support tech entrepreneurs that are in non-traditional space demographically or in terms of geography, more rural areas. So look forward to seeing applicants from Southeast Washington for this Equitable Innovation Accelerator as well. I'll move quickly through the last few slides so I can take questions if people have any. Where we see the significance of where we want to go in terms of economic recovery is, as I've already mentioned a couple times, equity is really important in terms of bringing everybody in. I will say that as we put this business resiliency network together, we are learning about what the barriers are. The barriers are everything from unreliable internet, as I'm sure you're aware, to just the need for technical assistance and getting the appropriate data together and uploading it to sites where you can access federal or state help. So we're working hard on that piece and hope that the legislature will give us some continued ability to keep building that network, and want to acknowledge that our existing network of ADOs and ports and economic development entities have been so significant in stepping up and being partners. So thanks to them. We are also be launching a recovery loan fund, which will have very generous terms. And again, this is to fill the gap for businesses who may be in that place where the federal assistance was either not available to them, or a little bit further down the road in recovery, they see the need to bring on some new equipment or to make some investments that will strengthen their connection to their customers in this new more significant online environment, and get very generous payback terms for that. And as I mentioned before, we also have grants for small business export assistance. On the next slide, you can see that our big picture advocacy in the legislature this year is for broadband, and there are really interesting things happening in that space, both with respect to how can we best utilize the federal investments that we anticipate. And also we have a mapping initiative. I would encourage people, if you go on our site, please take our broadband speed test. We're getting good real-time data that's much better than the federal FCC data at this point to help really maximize where we put those broadband investments. Childcare, obviously significant. For working families have understood the significance of how childcare is really an essential piece of family business infrastructure, having safe, quality places for our kids to be. As I mentioned before, small business, and then this sector work, which I believe we've got some really great partnerships with the Tri-Cities. The clean energy space is particularly exciting with all the different forms of clean energy that is available here. And also we see some real exciting things occurring in what I'm calling like the maker economy, which of course wineries are part of that, and craft breweries and agricultural local value-added agriculture things that are happening in that space as well. We anticipate the legislature will do a fairly major infrastructure investment that may be on the federal agenda as well. So we'll stay tuned and hopefully have a great pipeline of projects teed up should there be those federal and state investments. Possibly a major transportation package will come through the legislature as well. And Commerce also works in the affordable housing and homelessness space, and we anticipate major investments in our housing trust fund. And we know that the need for affordable housing is across the spectrum, from affordable housing to just mid-market housing. And also that we have regions of the state where the affordability and quality of life, like in the Tri-Cities, like in the Spokane area, is very attractive. We're getting a lot of in-migration, and that is driving up housing costs and really challenging us on the housing supply side of the equation. I think that is close to the last slide I have, yes. So I am very happy to take your questions. And again, thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit with you. And thank you, Shay and others, for inviting me to participate. And a big shout out to my team at Commerce, of course. I get the opportunity to say this and share this information with you, but I have a really dedicated team of about 300 people that work out of duty stations in Olympia, Seattle, and Spokane. And we hope to expand into some other regions as well. And they have really worked very hard to turn around any assistance dollars that come our way from the feds or from the state legislature to landlords in the form of rental assistance, to businesses, and to local governments who are key partners in getting us through this tough time.
Wow, what an incredible presentation. Thank you so much, Director Brown, for the insights. I love the data points that you provided. And thank you also for the information on the Equitable Innovation Accelerator. I think that's going to be an amazing resource for our area. You mentioned manufacturing, and I do have a question around that. And for those of you watching, if you have any additional questions, then please use the Q&A box to drop those questions in, and I'll get those over to Director Brown. So this question is about the bill that Representative Matt Binkie sponsored, House Bill 1170, the Washington Best Manufacturing Act, Building Economic Strength Through Manufacturing, which the Department of Commerce is responsible for implementing. Does Commerce expect this bill to pass? And if so, can you give us some insight on how that might potentially affect the Tri-Cities?
Yes, we were really pleased to see this bill and have met with Rep. Binkie, and this has some strong bipartisan support. So I'm excited about it. It will give us the opportunity to really do what I mentioned before, this sort of cluster development work in the manufacturing space. And we see a lot of opportunity for small manufacturing, for supply chain development. In the clean energy space, for example, we know that we have we have solar and wind and nuclear and battery storage, but building out the full supply chain is an opportunity. We just saw Violet Power located in Moses Lake, and we see the possibility for the full solar supply chain to be here in Washington State, and for us not to have to rely on China, for example, for key aspects of that supply chain. Another example is definitely, I'm really excited about battery storage and the grid modernization work that's happening, much of it centered in the Tri-Cities. When we break that barrier to be able to even out our power generation with battery storage, really great things are going to come as a result of that. In the transportation space in particular, it will really facilitate our transition to electric vehicles. Electric aviation testing is now happening. Again, I think about this knowledge corridor through Washington State, and imagine our ability with electric aviation to transport people from, say, Portland, WSU Vancouver to WSU Tri-Cities, through to Spokane, where we have a really interesting developments happening in the life sciences sector. So we are optimistic about Rep. Binkie's bill, and definitely want to work with him on those concepts and the manufacturing council that he has envisioned there.
Excellent. Thank you for answering that. There are probably some thoughts on, or some questions around the COVID relief package. And so that's where I'm going to take you for the next question. So the federal COVID relief package that passed in December, do you have insight on when these funds may reach the counties and cities? Specifically, how much of that funding might be allocated to small business grants?
Yes. Well, I don't have anything definitive, but I can tell you that is in fact what we're waiting for in terms of this early action bill. There are a couple of proposals on the table. Looks like one will be moving through the House. within the next day or two, and that there has already been some negotiation between the House and the Senate. So that will essentially appropriate the federal funds to the state agencies, and we, Commerce, will be looking at the business part of that. Looks to be around $240 million. So that would be our biggest round of business assistance yet, should that be the case. And then also another significant round of rental assistance, because we do know that there are many people struggling with that. We also know it's challenging for landlords with an eviction moratorium, that many landlords are also really feeling the impact of unpaid rent. So look to that bill to give us the numbers. And then we also, the federal government through the Treasury has to provide us the guidance. So we are also awaiting that piece. As soon as we have the guidance and the appropriation, we're already planning to try to turn over the dollars as quickly as possible using our economic development partners, the ADOs, possibly utilizing our housing authority and county housing partners as well on the rental assistance.
Great. Thank you for that insight and for giving us some more information on just kind of what's happening with that. Really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much for your presentation and answering these questions from our audience. We're just stoked to have you with us. So thank you again. It wouldn't be a chamber luncheon without door prizes, right? So we do have a couple of gift packages to give away today. These were generously donated by Gisa Credit Union. We have a bottle of wine from Barnard Griffin Winery and a $50 gift card from CG Public House. We also have a bottle of 14 Hands wine and a $50 gift card to Kagan Coffee and Crepes. So I want to congratulate the two winners of these. We have Kayla Corbin with Adair Homes and Zach Mason with Chicago Title. You are two big winners today. These names were randomly drawn prior to the start of this program. Guys, Elizabeth Holtz will be reaching out to you so you can collect these prizes. And before we wrap up today, I do have some very special thank yous. First, I want to thank Commerce Director Lisa Brown for today's wonderful presentation. Thank you to Energy Northwest for sponsoring today's luncheon. And to all of you who joined us for this virtual luncheon this afternoon. A video of today's luncheon will be posted on the Chamber's YouTube channel, so don't forget to check that out. It will also be shared on the Chamber's Facebook page. We'd love if you would pass that link along to your family, friends, and your coworkers who may have missed this luncheon. But please join us on Wednesday, February 24th. Go ahead and mark your calendars for that. That's the Chamber's State of the Ports virtual luncheon. Executives from the Port of Benton, the Port of Kennewick, and the Port of Pasco will share updates on their ongoing projects. And you can register for that luncheon at tricityregionalchamber.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day in the Tri-Cities.